on air. Good morning and welcome to Cheche, the show where opinion counts, live on Citizen TV. I'm your host, Udwa Kamimo. Now, our apologies, we're coming to you later than usual, of course, because of the unfortunate breaking news of the passing of the Senator for Homa Bay, the late Otieno Kajwang. And so to remember him, we do have one of his colleagues within ODM, the MP for Rarieda, the Honorable Nicholas Gumbo. Thank you for coming. You spent 3 hours in traffic to get here, and we caught you just before you joined your colleagues at the Lee Funeral home to receive Senator Kajwang's body. How well did you know him?
I must say pretty well, really, because we have been working very closely with Honorable Kajwang. But before I get into that, may I take this opportunity on my own behalf and that of the people of Rarieda to send my heartfelt condolences to his family and to the people of Homa Bay County that he represented in the Senate. Of course, the loss of Honorable Kajwang is tragic for us as the ODM fraternity. I think Kenyan politics is all the poorer by his loss, because see, a problem we have in politics today is that a lot of people don't want to take a stand on anything. But Otieno Kajwang was one of the few politicians who took a stand on an issue and just went with it, and really for us he was an asset, a major asset, and I can say without any fear of contradiction that as of now, as things stand now, I don't think the whole of the greater southern Nyanza would talk of a better politician than the late Otieno Kajwang. It's a tragic loss.
You talk about South Nyanza,
yes.
And in fact you were dancing together in Homa Bay last Friday, and as part of our coverage we saw the former Prime Minister, the ODM leader Raila Odinga, talking about that event, but also telling us that he actually had an accident on Friday.
Yes, indeed. I mean, we were at Yugis for this consultative meeting of ODM leaders from the Greater Nyanza, and being the Senate, and of course, as it's the case with many such events, he was to be the master of ceremonies. And a lot of us were a bit surprised when by around about noon he had still not shown up. But when he showed up, he told us that he had been involved in a fairly bad accident where, if I'm not wrong, his bodyguard broke an arm. But being Kajwang, he just went to the stage and started dancing, and some of us really felt that perhaps he should have, gone and had a checkup first. But that was him, Otieno Kajwang. He wouldn't let a moment like that go by. So really, it's tragic. Let me say, to lose a maverick like that anytime for our coalition, for our party, is tragic.
Is it known whether he actually did a medical test after the accident?
Incidentally, because we were in Oyugis on Friday. From Oyugis we went for a rally, and we were actually at a place called Sikri for the consultative meeting. Then we went to Agoro Sare, which is just nearby. Then unfortunately, since that time I've not had a chance to meet him, although we interacted closely. But I wouldn't know really, although I would have hoped that after that accident, because it was an accident where there was quite a bit of injuries, not necessarily physical to him, but his bodyguard, I'm told, had a fairly major injury. So I would expect that he might have gone for a checkup after that.
Did he? Because the former Prime Minister talked about advising him to go for a scan after the accident.
Yeah.
And that's not clear whether that happened.
Maybe those are the facts and which we will emerge as things go on, but from where I sit, I have no recollection of him having gone, because, as I said, I haven't had the chance to speak to him since we met in Homa Bay. Yeah.
Let's talk about the man now within the party.
Yeah.
You were dancing together on a truck.
Yes.
Last Friday. We've seen the footage, the file footage of him galvanizing your rallies, singing and dancing, famous for the Mapambano song. But in terms of the space he occupied within ODM, how would you characterize it?
Larger than life, if you ask me, because Otieno Kajwang is one of these people who really gave ODM identity. Without Otieno Kajwang, you wouldn't, you see Otieno Kajwang, you see ODM. And in terms of what we believe in, you know, ODM, we are social democrats. In fact, in terms of what we believed in, Otieno Kajwang was a believer in our party leader, a believer in our cause, a believer in the party, a believer in the coalition. He is one person that any politician who wants to go out after something would be happy to have in their corner. Of course, those who would, it happens in most of these things, those who are in the opposite corner really would not, this is the kind of a person who said it as it is. I remember him coming here to Citizen TV on a number of occasions, talking on issues that are of national importance, and he takes a stand. And you see, for me, that is a quality that I admire, because a lot of times we now have politicians, quote unquote, who can't take a stand on anything. You don't know whether they are going east or west or north or south.
All right. We now have to go to a Lee Funeral Home where Francis Kashuri is. I believe the CORD leaders are now together and are getting ready to issue a statement. Francis, are you there?
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is the Lee Funeral Home here in Nairobi County. And as I told you earlier, the CORD leadership is here at the Lee Funeral Home to condole with the family of the fallen senator of Homa Bay County, the late Honorable Otieno Kajwang, former Vice President and Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka, Moses Wetangula, party leader Ford Kenya, and co-principal CORD, and the leader of the Orange Democratic Movement Party, ODM, and CORD leader Raila Odinga are all here, together with a number of members of the National Assembly and the Senate who are here to condole with the family of the late Senator Otieno Kajwang, right here at the Lee Funeral Home. And shortly we will be hearing what the CORD leadership has to say about the demise of the senator last night. He was pronounced dead at the Mater Hospital last evening at about 11 o'clock after suffering a cardiac arrest. And so shortly we will be hearing what they have to say in relation to the demise of the late Senator Otieno Kajwang. And many people have described the late Senator Otieno Kajwang variously as an articulate speaker, a good orator, an excellent debater, and memories. Many people have fond memories of the late senator in the field of politics and also during debates in the chambers. And shortly the CORD leadership will be addressing the media to express their remarks or make their remarks in relation to the demise of the late Senator Otieno Kajwang. Yep, here he is, CORD leader Raila Odinga too.
We already talked earlier to the media. Are you okay now? Huh? Well, we already talked earlier about the state of affairs. Because we formally announced the death of our colleague, our comrade, Honorable Gerald Otieno Kajwang. This occurred last evening at around 11:30 p.m. at the Mata Misericordia Hospital. Honorable Kajwang has been in very good health, as all of you know. We had a major function with him last Friday at the Oyugis Market in Homa Bay County. From there, he proceeded back to Nairobi. But before he arrived at Oyugis, he had a road accident on the way to Oyugis, and the car was extensively damaged. The driver was also injured, but he himself came out without any injuries. We asked him, of course, to go and see a doctor just to rule out any kind of internal injuries. Thereafter, he came back to Nairobi, and he was generally in good condition, according to the wife. The people who were with him on Sunday, he was also in fairly sound physical condition. Yesterday, he was in the Senate, and according to Honorable Moses Wetangula, he gave a very impressive speech at the Senate. Thereafter, he proceeded to the National Assembly, where he met with colleagues and they had even drinks. And then he left for home at 8:30 p.m. Upon arrival, he started feeling unwell, and then asked the wife to take him to the hospital. He was rushed to Mata Hospital. On arrival, he actually alighted from the car and walked himself into the casualty, but collapsed on arrival at the casualty. The efforts by the doctors to resuscitate him were fruitless, and at around after 11 p.m. he was pronounced dead. This is a terrible blow to ODM and the CORD fraternity, because Otieno Kajwang was one of our strongest pillars in our movement. He was the chairman of ODM Homa Bay County, but also a member of our National Governing Council. Otieno Kajwang was a councillor, was an advisor, a top legal advisor, and also one of our members of our think tank. So we have lost a great man, a man who believed truly in a free, independent, corruption-free Kenya. He dedicated most of his life to fighting for justice. Some of you may know that Kajwang was actually expelled from the University of Nairobi for when the student movement protested against barring of opposition leaders from running for parliamentary elections of 1979. That did not stop him from enrolling elsewhere at Makerere University and graduating with a law degree. He was an accomplished lawyer, a strategist. You have lost a truly great Kenyan nationalist and patriot. We shall definitely miss Otieno Kajwang, but more will be said at an appropriate time. Moses will say a few words, and then Steve. Let me give Steve first, because Steve was the one who had not spoken.
Thank you. Well, the family of our fallen brother and all of us as a nation, I learned with very deep sorrow of the passing on of our colleague. I mean, it's one of those stories you hear and you just don't want to believe. But this has happened, and we have to deal with it. Otieno Kajwang has distinguished himself as a true nationalist, as our brother Raila said, and we deeply miss him. He lies here at Lee Funeral Home, fairly rested. And I know a lot of Kenyans will remember Mheshimiwa Kajwang for his clarion call of a luta continua. The struggle continues. The fact that Otieno Kajwang is lying here will not stop the rest of us, his colleagues, from continuing with that struggle for good governance, for a better nation, and one nation that will stand as one nation and not a nation of tribes. I recall when we had the rally at Kayole with him, he came out and said very clearly what was going on. Otieno Kajwang was a man who was never afraid of saying the truth, however painful. I've had occasion to work with him very closely, and I know that was a very trusted friend of our brother Raila Odinga. Even when they negotiated at any given stage to come into NARC, or indeed within the Grand Coalition, his contributions in cabinet, his mental presence when all of us dealt with very difficult issues is something we shall surely miss. His boldness, his sheer exuberance about life. At this moment of great grief, all of us stand in solidarity with his family, with the people of Homa Bay, where he served as senator. And if you want to see what Kajwang said in the last few moments, even go to the YouTube, you'll be able to see his commitment even to enhancing democracy within our parties without compromising loyalty to these vehicles of governance which are important in this era, when we must settle the nation state when it comes to the practice of democracy. We've lost a champion, and this is a tragedy not just for, as I said, the family, people of Homa Bay, but for the whole of this nation, the East African region. I have no doubt, because I've just been talking to lawyers in Kigali, 700 lawyers, and there was a member of this fraternity, a movement of people who believe that nations in our region can uphold the rule of law and be able to deliver justice to our people. Kajwang is surely not dead. He has just rested. The rest of us must continue with his call. Bado mapambano. May God rest his soul in peace.
Thank you, fellow Kenyans. We stand here with a tremendous grief, mourning the loss of one of our greatest compatriots, one of the greatest soldiers in the rank and file of our code fraternity. I have known Gerald Otieno Kajwang from our university days in the late 70s, when he was one of our student leaders with the Secretary General of SONU at the time. He was expelled for standing up for the oppressed, and he has remained steady and committed to the cause of the oppressed. As a team leader in the Senate, Gerald Otieno Kajwang has been one of the most dependable senators in the Code fraternity. He represented us in most critical committees, and his production in those committees was beyond question and reproach. Only yesterday, the senator was in the chamber, and those of you who may have watched TV, he made one of his most passionate and articulate speeches on the floor of the Senate while contributing to the bill on police reforms and security general in the country. He spoke with clarity, he spoke with passion, he spoke with patriotism, and questioned many of the happenings that are going on in the country that have compromised our security and left Kenyans at the hands of criminal gangs. You could feel what he was feeling for the 15 minutes he spoke. Those of my colleagues like Jim Orengo is here and Bone Khalwale can tell you probably that was Kajwang's best speech in the Senate. We didn't know that he was making his last. And he sat quietly in the chamber after that until 6:15 when he left. This morning when we learned of his passing on, it came as a blow to all of us. Our fraternity has lost a soldier of purpose, of courage, and of direction. Kenyans know Otieno Kajwang for his clarion call of Mapambano and his hilarious statement on the bomb that was going on in the country everywhere. I take this opportunity on behalf of the Senate to send our sincere and heartfelt condolences to the family of our brother. This afternoon, Senate will dedicate its sitting to eulogize a great son of Homa Bay County, a great son of the Republic of Kenya, a great member of the Law Society of Kenya, and a great East African, and a great human being. May the good Lord rest his soul in eternal peace.
Thank you.
Give them time, give them time.
Well, the words coming from the code leaders eulogizing the late Senator Honorable Otieno Kajwang this morning at the Lee Funeral Home. And their words echoing what has been said by very many people right here at the Lee Funeral Home. All those we managed to interview here at the Lee Funeral Home eulogizing the fallen Senator of Homa Bay County, the late Honorable Otieno Kajwang, an articulate debater, an exceptional orator, and a loyal member of the Orange Democratic Movement Party. And there you could see ODM leader Raila Odinga eulogizing a man he called a trusted confidant and a strategist and an advisor on various issues affecting the party. Well, that's all for now. Of course, it remains unclear when the late senator will be buried, and those are some of the things we'll be hoping to, some of the information that we'll be hoping to get later in the day or in the course of the week. But of course, as the minority leader in the Senate pointed out, the Senate this afternoon will dedicate its session to eulogize and condole with the family of the late Honorable Senator Otieno Kajwang. That's all for now. Udwak, back to you in studio, and definitely we'll keep our viewers updated with more information in relation to the demise of the late Senator of Homa Bay County, Gerald Otieno Kajwang. Back to you.
Thank you, Francis Kushiri. And he was reporting there from the Lee Funeral Home where, as he said, the CORD principals have just been talking about the unfortunate untimely death of Senator Otieno Kajwang. And we still have with us in the studio Nicholas Gumbo, the Honorable MP for Rarieda. And as you were saying, I'm not sure you knew as much about him as the CORD leader, Raila Odinga, shared. Not many of us knew that he was expelled from the University of Nairobi, but Senator Kajwang certainly made a mark on Kenyan politics. What does his loss mean for ODM and for CORD in general?
Without a doubt, a major setback. Like I was saying just before we went out off air, in the life that we live, the life of, you have to stand for something. Otieno Kajwang stood for justice. Otieno Kajwang embraced what he believed in and then followed it and threw his heart and soul at what he believed in. And in these days, in this day and age, finding politicians who believe in something and throw their heart and soul after it is a rare quality. So it's a big loss, it's a setback for us. And he was without doubt a major pillar around our leader, around our party, around our coalition, and really not just the CORD fraternity, but Kenya as a whole is much the poorer with the loss of Otieno Kajwang. Because, you see, we have now a new breed of politicians who want to walk the middle ground. They can't tell you exactly, you ask them, what do you stand for? They can't tell you. Otieno Kajwang clearly stood for something. He believed in it right from his student days. I knew about his expulsion. I was still a much younger person when he was in the university. I think I was in lower high school then. But I knew that he was expelled from the University of Nairobi, did his degree in Makerere, and then of course he practiced as a lawyer for a while, then joined politics. Definitely my party leader knows him a lot better than I do, because they went to parliament before I did. But even in the times that I interacted with Otieno Kajwang, what I really admired about him is his conviction. He believed in an issue. You've seen of late how our coalition has had to face issues, even from internal issues, but he has never wavered. He's been steadfast around the ideologies of the party. He's been steadfast around the party leader.
Mutegi.
During the elections that you ran, which you ran for the party elections,
yes,
which didn't take place at Kasarani,
Due to the Men in Black issue?
because of the men. Were you in the same side? Because there are two groups. Were you in the same?
More or less, I appeared here and I said I wasn't exactly on either of the sides, but I gravitated more towards his side because I shared a lot of things that he believed in. I didn't believe in the other side.
Let's clarify that, because I think you were in the running at some point.
Yes, I was.
He was. You wanted to be chairman?
Yeah.
Secretary.
Secretary General. Secretary.
Yeah.
And then, the belief was that some of you had been prevailed upon to, stand your ambitions down in favor of him and his lineup.
Yes.
In favor of fact, you wanted to be Secretary General, and the saying, or the idea was that the party leader was the son of another person, not you.
Well, when I was last year on Cheche, I think I made it clear that at a personal level, I had met the party leader just before I came for the show, but he never, ever told me to stand down. So if he asked anybody, I don't think he would, because the way I know him, he believes in competition. I don't see what he would gain by asking somebody to stand down. Of course, he would be interested in order in the party, but asking people to stand down, at least speaking for myself, nobody asked me to stand down.
Okay. So going back to the question that Mutegi asked about the nascent divisions that were brewing in ODM at that point, how were you aligned or not with the late Senator?
In a lot more ways than one, we shared the same beliefs with Otieno Kajwang, because I happen also to believe that as a politician, you cannot walk the middle ground. You have to stand for one thing or the other. And that is my nature. That was his nature. So ideologically, we converged at that point. We shared the belief in justice. We shared the belief in equality for all Kenyans, and all these things that really would make the lives of our people better. So to that extent, much as I didn't overtly, align with any side of the divide, if there was any, I would more.
There was a divide.
Well,
hence the reason the elections were not.
Yeah, well, like I said, I personally didn't belong to either of those, but ideologically we belong to the same fold.
After the elections,
yes,
you see the party has gone into some kind of crisis.
Yes.
First of all, there was a committee that was selected, or some group was asked to look at what the problem was and give a solution. But we have never had anything after that.
Crisis, I wouldn't say it's a crisis. Of course, like all,
how would you describe
all major formations. ODM is a major formation.
Yes. So how would you describe what's going on at the moment?
We have some problems, without a doubt. But crisis, I don't think so, because all our programs are running. As you saw, like on Friday when we last had the function with the Honorable Kajwang, we were having a consultative meeting to get back to our grassroots.
As a result of what I'm calling a crisis. We would have had that meeting. Were it not for the fact that there's a problem?
I will tell you with all due respect, we have always gone out to meet our supporters, and it doesn't have to be in times of crisis. In fact, this is something that even before we went to Kasarani, those who come from ODM strongholds, part of the reason we have such an appeal to the grassroots is because we go out to them. And in fact, even long before I joined politics, I was very much within I shared the same ideology. It was not ODM then. We started as the Liberal Democratic Party, and that was the way we went out to reach to our people. So if we went to Yugis on Friday, it was not to try per se to stem a crisis, but we were going back to what we know best.
How could it not have been a crisis if on the same day that you were having an event, one of your supposedly staunchest members was holding a separate engagement in the same area, and in fact has been an open rebellion to your party leader, Raila Odinga, to the extent that you are now trying to get others like him, the so-called rebels, out of the positions they hold within within both chambers of parliament. How can you not be in crisis?
I do not know of any staunch member of ODM who was holding any other function in Homa Bay. There was a member of ODM who was having a function in Homa Bay.
Staunch member of ODM who claims that he bankrolled the last election campaign.
That is his word. I mean, when you why would I come here? And because if I believe in ODM, I have to build it. Bankrolling. What is bankrolling? Giving 5 shillings, giving 50 million? That is his word. But the fact that I donate to a cause doesn't make me a staunch member, because staunch, to me, a staunch member would come in how well I believe in what that entity stands for. So if you're talking about those who are having the other function, I didn't see. If you're talking about the person who was spearheading that function, I didn't see a staunch member there, without a doubt.
Right. So your party, therefore, is not in crisis, even though you have identified people that you call moles and people whom you see as being in open rebellion.
Woodwork, it is always a problem to run a huge political entity like ODM when you're outside government. That is given. Because people go into politics for all sorts of reasons. There are people who want the gains today. There are people who don't have the patience to wait. Because these things, to get to the kind of programs that we have, it requires endurance, it requires patience. Not everybody has the same endurance levels. Not everybody is as patient as the rest. So when they see all manner of goodies, it tends to be attractive because it is immediate, and it tends to respond to what they consider as their immediate needs.
What do you mean by goodies? If you express a different opinion from a person, is that like the member for Kisumu? The guy who has been removed from among others.
No.
In today's press.
No, Mutegi. I don't think the member for Kisumu Central expressed a different opinion. What the member for Kisumu Central expressed was absolute distortion of facts, and I will explain. He said that the Luos have never been in government. That's absolute distortion of facts. Look at the Kenya government. Right from the first government formed by Jomo Kenyatta in 1963, in that government, there were 16 ministers, including Jomo Kenyatta himself. There were 4 Luos. The late Tom Mboya was there, Jaramogi Ochieng Oneko was there, Onyango Ayodo was there, and there was also Ochieng Oneko was there. So 4 out of 16, that was that. Tell me one government in Kenya which has been, this is what they're talking about, and that's why we are saying, you don't go out there and start distorting facts. In fact, the contribution that my community has made, and the people of Nyanza as a whole, I'm not just talking about my community, it's known to everybody. And there is not a single government, Mutegi, tell me one government. When somebody goes to Kisumu and starts saying that we are tired of being outside government, honestly, that's distortion of fact. Only up to last year, who was the Prime Minister of the Republic of Kenya? Raila Amolo Odinga. So these are people who are pursuing personal interest and encapsulating them to start to look like they're pursuing community interest, short-term gains. And this is what I disagree with completely.
What gains are these?
Personal, I do not know what it is, but it can only be personal. Because when somebody says that the Luos are tired of being outside government, when somebody says that Luoland is the most underdeveloped place in Kenya, that's total lies. And there are statistical facts to prove. The same fellow who is talking about Luoland being the most underdeveloped part of Kenya uses Kisumu International Airport every weekend, which is the 4th international airport in Kenya. And then he wants to try with another band of people who are pursuing their own interests. They want to try to make it look like it is one person who has made that to be. That is
Does
distortion.
that apply then to the governor for Nairobi, Dr. Evans Kidero? We've alluded to him because
Yes.
he was the one who had the event
Yeah.
in Oyugis on Friday, in Homa Bay on Friday as well. And you've talked about people receiving goodies. So are you putting him in that same category of people who, for whatever reason,
I don't want
are
to
being
discuss
lured?
personalities,
Right.
except to say that as a person, I do not know what Kidero stands for. Because I'll give you...
You want to be president of the Republic of Kenya?
Well,
Is that a sin?
that is everybody's right, Mutegi.
Yeah.
It is your right, it is my right, it is Woodwork's right. There's no problem with that. But one thing, you know, we as a community, we have a saying that if I pass a butchery, the fact that I am poor and does not have money is no reason for me to stop craving for meat. Craving, everybody can do. Wanting and getting are different things. No one can stop Kidero, anybody, Gumbo, Mutegi, Woodwork, Amimo, from wanting to be president. All we are saying, we wish him well. But as I know my community very well, it is not, in my view, you don't get it using the kind of things. I'll give you an example. We in CORD believe that we should have more money going to the counties. We organized in the referendum. And it is not just to benefit the people of CORD. It is to benefit the people of Kenya. Because you've looked at the level of degradation in our country. Look at the conflicts that are going on in the outlying areas of Kenya. What is the reason? The underlying reason is the extreme degradation in those areas. You go, for example, to Kapedo, where we've had conflicts now. One well serving people within a radius of 30 kilometers. How do you expect those people to kujivunia kwa Kenya? It is not possible. We believe that the tensions in our country, the conflicts that have been in our country for the last 50 years, is a result of this extreme degradation. And it goes back, it's historical in nature, by the way. The other day I was reading the highly acclaimed session of paper number 10 of 1965, authored by Tom Mboya and Mwai Kibaki. It basically mapped Kenya into two. What you would call the green part of Kenya and the parched part of Kenya. And their belief, which in my view was entirely wrong, that if you develop the green part of Kenya, what people call the chlorophyll side of Kenya, then the sand side of Kenya will benefit. How? This is a capitalistic country. It has not happened. So you can want to be president. Nobody stops anyone from doing that. But what are your programs? What do you believe in?
Okay. One other person,
yes,
who has expressed his interest in being president or asking the leader of ODM now to step aside,
yeah,
is one Onyonka. who also has been now removed from one of the committees. Does it mean that if you make such statement, that's sacrilegious?
Richard Onyonka, Dalmas Otieno, it just seems as if...
I of course, you know, we are the opposition, and we have a role, and that role is not just a role we have given unto ourselves. It is a role that has been given to us by the Constitution. We have a role to play. You cannot be in the opposition. You know, I have looked at the dalliances of my colleagues, and to be honest with you, I'm not sure whether they are talking about working with the Jubilee government or working for the Jubilee government. But in my view, most of their statements tend to imply they want to work for the Jubilee government.
No. Their statements are saying this.
Yeah.
You, Mheshimiwa, former Prime Minister, you're just too old now. Step aside. Give young people a chance. And most of these people are younger than him. And you, and if you criticize like the member for Kisumu, says you're being psychophant. But the fact that they want
Mutegi,
somebody to step aside,
Mutegi,
that's not a sin.
Mutegi,
They should be allowed to say
if
so.
I am definitely younger than Raila Odinga, if I do feel that I can do a better job than him, why can't I take him on? Why can't I put my programs on the table? Remember when we got independence, the likes of people, the people who made a mark, the likes of the late T.J. Mboya, they were in their early 30s. They didn't have to. Did they ask Jomo Kenyatta, who was in his late 70s, to step aside to give them room? They worked with him. They proved their worth. These fellows have not proved anything. So for them to come and say that Raila should step aside, what is the reason? I told you about Jomo Kenyatta, who took over when he was 70s. He worked comfortably with the Mboyas, the Kibakis, who were in their 20s, their 30s, the Matibas. What was the problem? They were building synergy. Because, remember, we say that you may be young in age, but very old in ideologies. And I think some of these fellows may be looking young in age. Some of these guys can't even contribute in parliament. Can you even quote what they have said in parliament? Where is this leadership skill that they are purporting to want to bring to the people of Kenya, which they cannot put on the national stage?
They just are not sycophantic like Kajwang.
No. What does contributing in parliament got to do with being psych? I contribute in parliament. I make sure I sit in parliament from 2:30 to 6:30. Is that being a psychophant? I am doing exactly what the people of Rarieda asked me to go there and do. How do these people, some of these fellows...
But if we're remembering the late senator,
yes,
and as Mutegi points out,
yes,
and as the former Prime Minister himself pointed out, trusted friend, close confidant.
Absolutely.
And as you've lined out, it does seem as if there are very clear and sharp divisions between within ODM. Can we then say that his contribution to ODM was that to stifle internal democracy?
I don't think his contribution in ODM was to stifle internal democracy. You know, we, like I've said, the fact that we are in a position is not an accident. It is a constitutional guarantee. We have a role to play. There's so much that as an opposition we must pronounce ourselves on. And I don't agree with this saying that you have to work with the government. How many governments do we have in Kenya today? Honestly, doesn't anyone know there are 48? Come look at my counties here where I come from. In the last 3 years, we have received over 12 billion shillings. Is that not enough to make a difference? Would you now be going that we even if it means go out there in a public forum and start saying, ignoring all these things that you have at your disposal, and start to say that even if we have to go through the window, we must be... Which government are you talking about? Look at the government of Nairobi here. One of the people who has been quoted as saying that we have to get into government, even if it is through the window, is the governor of Nairobi. Every year, from their location.
Incidentally, I must say for our viewers, he was advertised as our guest this morning.
Yes.
But you know, we had the unfortunate death of Senator Kajwang, which is why you're here. But he also said that he had a meeting at State House with the president.
I would be happier and would even vote for Evans Kidero as president at a later date if he could show the people of Nairobi where all the three of us live.
What do you mean later?
Why 2017?
If he wanted and I felt that he has done something, as far as I'm concerned, nothing. What he should be doing if you ask me. It's not those weekly Harambes that go to Nyanza every day. He's not governor for Nyanza, for heaven's sake. He is governor for
something
Nairobi.
wrong? Is that wrong?
It is not wrong, but his constitutional office is the governor of Nairobi, not the chief Harambee collector for Nyanza.
One of the places he spent a lot of time in was in Homa Bay,
yes.
Where Otieno Kajwang was the senator.
Yes.
Was there some sort of personal rivalry between the two? Was there something?
I'm an engineer and we are not given to speculation.
Right.
I speak from facts.
Yeah.
And that's why I've said, if I was the governor for Nairobi today, let me give you an example. I didn't know about this interview. You told me about this interview. To get from my house to here, hardly 14 kilometers. In fact, hardly 10 kilometers. It took me 3 hours. Why haven't we seen on the table a serious program to deal with the traffic problems in Nairobi? You know Nairobi. You've been living here, Mutegi, for a very long time. What can you put your finger on and say that since the advent of county governments, this is what has changed? The filth is still there. The streets are uncleaned. Workers still go unpaid. How does anyone like that convince me that he is good enough to be CEO for a county?
But then if we come back to Senator Kajwang, whom we're remembering,
yeah.
We have little time left. His last tweet had
yes.
to do with Chicken Gate,
yes.
which is all over the papers this morning. The supposed corruption and collusion within the IBC,
yeah.
and extra ballot papers and all of that mess. And which your party leader spoke about yesterday.
I was there at the press conference.
Yes, we all saw you.
Yeah.
But there were also questions over Senator Kajwang's performance when he was immigration minister, were there not?
Unfortunately, my culture forbids me to talk ill of those who are passed on, and I wouldn't want to go that way. He was a personal friend. I can only condole with the family. Woodwork, let me make
isn't it a fact that...
Let me make a general statement here.
Yeah.
I believe the purpose of this life that we have been given is for us to try our best. None of us comes into this life to do everything because we cannot.
Yeah.
I want to believe that within the space that he had, he tried his best. It may not have satisfied everybody, but I want to believe, like I said, I will find it awkward for me to speak ill of somebody.
But the fact that at one time he was removed from the list of lawyers by the Law Society of Kenya.
That's really
that's a fact anyway.
Yes.
Which nobody, as we say, we don't talk ill of the dead.
Yes.
But that's a fact.
Yeah. Wow.
So in terms of strategy then, while he was larger than life, and we've seen that, the Wiper Party leader, Kalonzo Musyoka, talked about his sheer exuberance for life. Again, we saw that. It just seems in terms of strategy, he might not have been the best person to be the closest, one of the closest to your party leader.
You know, I have looked at the kind of emotions that have been flowing since the passing of the Honorable Kajwang. I think a lot of people loved him. If you are to have 100 people in a room, I think 60 would love him, 40 may not love him, which is really the case. There's none of us who is loved by everybody.
He was really a rabble-rouser.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I'll give you what is this life all about? I read a very interesting story as a young man of some Tanzanian peasant when the missionaries first went there and they found him sleeping under a coconut tree with a long pipe taking his palm wine. So the missionary chastised him and said, "You lazy man, why don't you get up and work?" And he asked the missionary, "Why do you want me to get up and work?" The missionary said, "You lazy man, so that you can provide for yourself and your family." And he asked the missionary, "Why should I provide for myself and my family?" He said, "But come on, you don't get it, so that you can be happy." And then the guy said, "But look at me. I'm happier than you. You have come all the way to worry about me when I don't even know who you are." So some of the standards, Woodwork and Mutegi, some of the standards we have in life, I think Otieno Kajwang led a full life. I would want to be as exuberant as him. I would want to live as full a life as him. Maybe I'm not. He was a man who was very versatile, a politician you want in your corner every time, and really it's a great loss.
It really is a great loss there.
Yeah.
So our condolences to you. He was your colleague and
Yes.
your personal friend. And thank you for sitting through the traffic to come and help us remember the colorfulness of the life that the late Senator for Homa Bay, Otieno Kajwang, lived. And so that's it for Cheche for now. Our guest this morning has been the Honorable MP for Rarieda, Nicholas Gumba. We also had in the studio, alongside him, Mutegi Njau of Real Media Services. My name is Udwa Kamimo. Thank you for engaging with us. Do have a great week.